and staff participating and showing up for our community meeting here. We are going to go ahead and call ourselves to order. And first on the agenda, we will, if everyone will stand, do we have Ms. Davlin? We do. Ready here for our opening invocation.
Oh God, we come before you this day with gratitude for our mayor, commissioners, and our city employees who work at this lower level to improve our own area. May you grant them wisdom and guidance in all of the business that needs to be taken care of, and also lead and guide them to whatever else is presented. We pray especially for the improvements that are being considered for our Amarillo Police Department and what they do for our community. Thank you for the moisture that you have gifted us with, and may you continue to bless our area with that kind of moisture. We ask a blessing on all of this afternoon. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, ma'am. If you guys would, join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag, please.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, guys. Please be seated. Okay. We're already to number 5 on our agenda here today. We've got somewhat of a lighter agenda, so we'll see how quickly we get through it. Ms. City Secretary, do we have any announcements?
Not this week, Mayor.
Okay. All right. We will go ahead and move forward to public comment. Ms. City Secretary, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do. We have 5 citizens, Mayor. Thank you. There we go. That's better. Thank you for participating in today's City Council meeting. Your input and your opinions are important to us, and we are glad that you're here to share them. At each posted meeting, we invite our fellow community members to address City Council regarding posted agenda items or topics related to city policy. Every speaker today will have 3 minutes to address the council. At the end of 2.5 minutes, you will hear a warning beep letting you know you have 30 seconds left to wrap up your thoughts. When you come up to the podium today, if you'll give your name and let us know whether or not you live in Amarillo city limits. Please note if you're speaking to an item that is not on the agenda today, council is limited in how they can interact with you on that item. They can give you a statement of fact or a statement of policy. They can ask that item be put on a future agenda, or they can refer you to staff to help address that item. With that, we will invite our first speaker up. That will be Alan Feingold. And on deck after Mr. Feingold will be Nathan Smith.
Alan Feingold, 2601 North Grand Street. The city spends millions, perhaps tens of millions of dollars every year on road maintenance. However, it always seems that there are roads in Amarillo which do not have adequate maintenance. This could be the result of a hypercritical attitude on my part. However, I believe many citizens share the same observation. It might be the result of the steady expansion of the city towards the west and southwest, which has required that the city make extraordinary expenditures in order to accommodate that expansion. Typically, it costs somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million per mile for the city to make a thoroughfare. That varies from approximately 90 feet in width at major intersections to approximately 60 feet in width at the narrowest point of the thoroughfares. As long as the city maintains an indefinite commitment to expansion, it will be difficult to find sufficient finances for repairing the roads that exist in the city, in the part of it which is generally regarded as old and perhaps not as useful as it once was. So I do suggest that whenever you are considering an expansion of the city in any direction, you consider the effect of that expenditure on the prospect of being able to repair the roads and streets that you already have. Just for an example, the city has an intersection at Southwest 3rd and Pierce, approximately 3 blocks from here, which seems perpetually to be in need of repair. The asphalt gets gouged out by the traffic over a period of 6 months to a year after it is repaired, and it seems to be the case that the city never has quite enough money to repair that particular intersection. I suggest, therefore, that the next time you repair it, use concrete, not asphalt, and make sure it is reinforced. Moreover, there's an intersection of the Pierce Street and Amarillo Boulevard, which is a perpetual danger to any pedestrian who has the nerve to cross it. I suggest that you put stripes on that particular intersection and that you consider also the possibility of putting concrete there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feingold. Nathan Smith. And on deck after Mr. Smith will be Bob G. Yalaman Chili.
That is definitely not going to want to be that close to my ass. Nathan Smith, I'm going to try to get through my rant as peacefully as possible. Some of you know personally how much I don't want to be here, so obviously I'm irritated. Anyway, as always, I will start with a Bible quote. We're going to pull it out of Deuteronomy. Oh, yes, 28 and 29. Well, 22, 28, and 29. Yada, yada, yada. If a man finds a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's fathers 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. Looping back around to that later. We're not a theocracy, so it's completely irrelevant. But greetings, council. I imagine some of you have figured out why I'm here. There's a little bit of a maggot group trying to, make sure Amarillo defines human as incubators and not humans, which is very interesting to me, but that's my purpose. I want you to let the public decide if women are women and people are women incubators, which is very fascinating. You have a faction who's been pushing for it, the pro-lifers, they claim, but CNN has reported 2 women in Texas. There have been more, but at least 2 women, if they couldn't get the procedure done, they were going to die. One of them lucked out, the heartbeat faded, and they were finally able to save her. The other one, she waited for the Supreme Court of Texas to say, hey, yeah, we'd prefer you to be fertile and still be able to reproduce. And the Texas Supreme Court said, nah, you can go off. You got to have the baby. That's fine. That's our Supreme Court. That's our pro-life Supreme Court. Fuck off, die. My apologies.
That'll be the last one, sir.
I will step away if I say anything else.
Appreciate that.
Anyway, our lovely governor said rape was going to go away in this state, just like rape vanished in all the pro-rape states. That's why there was an 11-year-old giving birth to a baby and then going into 7th grade in Mississippi, another place that is pro-rape. Our magic governor said we're going to go after rapists hard because rape is a crime. That's what our big brain Professor X governor said. Turns out to go after a rapist, they have to rape first. It wasn't mentioned in his comics, but I thought he was Professor X for a second. It was very weird. Anyway, so we're pro-rape in Texas. We're not pro-life. If you think we're pro-life, ask those little brown babies drowning at the border, because Texas will literally use its own resources to stop the little brown babies from being saved. We're not pro-life. We're pro-women incubators. We're pro-property. I just think you should give the population a chance to vote. You're going to have to, you guys are politicians. You know how framing with poll stuffs work. Don't use, hey, are women incubators or are women people. I'm going to go now.
Appreciate you, Nathan. Have a good day, sir.
I apologize for, I think I did pretty well.
Apology accepted. We appreciate you making sure it doesn't happen again.
Indeed. Y'all have a wonderful day.
You too, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Bob G., Yalamanchili. I don't believe I see him in here. Next up, Michael Damron. And after Mr. Damron will be Jesse Fremer.
I want to give thanks to Admiral William H. McRaven, retired. Michael, for the first time in his life, decided to take Mr. McRaven's advice. I will not be ringing the bell, nor will Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer no longer be sugar cookied. Now, as far as the signage goes at East Ridge Lanes, I have spoken to AAA. I have not spoken to the senior member. All of the people that were involved in the sign between 1956 and 1959 have passed on. I received a call back from the senior member, but I was in Wichita Falls, Texas at the time. So I did not want to fill him up with any useless information that he already knows. So I will be speaking to him, and I was a little impetuous about the substantial savings in it. Most people have no idea what was involved in marrying that sign together between 1956 and 1959, when I was just a boy. So the main thing here is that the city of Amarillo will get their money's worth. East Ridge Lanes is not hounded with having service here and there, and that it's done properly. So I'm going to leave it at that for expedience, and I hope that you will contact AAA. I will, just as soon as I possibly can see my way, I will be talking to the senior member, and I'm sure that we will come to agreement. He'll have many ideas because he's been in the business since he's been a young boy, and so the main thing is that you guys get your money's worth. Revenue is brought into the city, and I'm hoping that you will consider securing it, because you don't have much time. If my hunch is right, it's moved in the last 4 years. I did not drop a plumb line and see, but I have a feeling that it's kind of like an abscess tooth right now, and the southwesterly wind is blowing 100 pounds per square foot on that 8-foot bowling can, and she's going that direction, luckily, north instead of south. You have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Damron. Jesse Fremer is next.
I'm Jesse Fremer, 5723 South Milam. I want to compliment you guys on getting rid of the parking garage as a burden that I thought we should never adopt it to. I'm looking forward to this next contract that you're dealing with on the bus transit system that you've now moved over here onto Bowie. And I'm curious about what your agreement's going to be with this lease. I tried to find any of your comments on the lease as to what kind of agreements you've made with the transit system, the bus companies that will be working that lease. I hope we don't get caught up in another kind of nonsense where the taxpayers have to fund that facility to support the companies goodwill there. I hope that lease will be addressed, that we will not be held accountable for some expenditures like we have with the Globe Center and like we have with the baseball diamond, because these things are a concern to me, that we write these leases to do things that I really think we need policemen, we need security in this city, we need good streets. And like Alan mentioned, I've got a street over on South 58th Street that has always been compromised by the drainage system, and we have water concerns in this city, and we're addressing the abuse of water in our city, and there's a lot of people are watering their lawns, and it's running into the streets and compromising our streets. And I hope there'll be some kind of effort that can be rectified, that we can control the water being drained off our properties rather than going into the streets, and then we'll get rid of this drainage fee. Appreciate your time. Have a God bless day.
Thank you, Mr. Frommer.
Thank you, Mr. Frommer. And next will be Bobji Yalamanchili.
Turn this around, or it's okay. My name is Bobji Yalamanchili. I'm with the Keep Amarillo Clean. I'm the one that started from the beginning. So I want to make a big effort this year, starting April, National Cleanup Day, which is the third Saturday of September. So we're going to have a cleanup every third Saturday of the month. And during the April, every day is a cleanup day. I mean, we have really, everybody has to work hard to, trash is a big problem in our city. I mean, I have traveled to many, many countries, but some of our neighborhoods, I don't know where I am. I mean, that bad. I mean, so we have to work hard, and then, I will work with the city and also solid waste department, and we'll make it a good effort this year. So that's what I meant to say. I made some flyers.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bobji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to involve our Chamber of Commerce, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, churches, and everybody, can involve. I mean, I'm working with the seniors now. We have all the time in the world. So we actually tomorrow, since it's a nice day, we're cleaning up. So that's what I'm trying to do. I just met one doctor. He's interested. So that's what I want to hear, more and more seniors and retirees. I mean, just go out and then take one area and just clean it up. We have to reduce our trash as much as possible before the wind picks it up. That's our biggest problem. Wind is the major problem. And also many people, going with the pickup trucks, so much trash coming out of the pickup trucks. Because of the wind, it just comes out. There's bags of trash. And the Amarillo Boulevard, I see many places. Whenever they go at a 50-mile speed, they just fly out. And they don't even realize until they go home. So that's another thing. And also I advise, I'm going to promote everybody, take your trash home. Don't drop it in the outside trash cans. They're full sometimes, and they don't have time to empty them. And also, the wind, it comes out. Same thing, we have some problem with the dumpsters. Whenever a city picks up, some of it falls on the ground with the loose stuff, small trash. And that need to be cleaned, otherwise we'll go someplace else. The alleys are terrible shape, some of the alleys. Some neighborhoods are real clean, but some neighborhoods are not. So we have to work, throughout the city, and that's what my goal is. So I want everybody's help in this regard. Take it as your problem. They was our city, let's clean it up, and let's take pride in our city. And the same thing with our neighborhoods. We go by the school district, elementary school boundaries. That's our new neighborhoods, because I work with the school district. I have access to all 55 schools in AISD. And also I'm trying to involve this year, Amarillo, Canyon, Bushland, and River Road as a metro area. So because this way, we are reducing as much as possible trash. By cleaning up once a month, I think we have a better chance of cleaning our city.
Mr. Yellowman Chili, I know I've volunteered a few times, and we're happy to volunteer again. So I'll ask City Secretary if there's a way for us to put this up on some of our social media or maybe the web page. Right. And then I know you work well with Parks and Rec and those guys over there, and so we're glad to try to come alongside you.
That's another thing I advise everybody. If your neighborhood is clean, I live in a clean neighborhood. I don't have to do anything actually. But our city, this is our city. I have a passion to do it. So if you think your city is clean, your neighborhood is clean, then involve with parks. We need volunteers in the parks. We can do the same thing, every month or every, whenever you have time, just connect with the parks department, and then you take one lake. It takes maybe 4 or 5 people, to clean up once in a while. But some of the parks, like Thompson Park, it takes more people. So, and also, people have to take their own trash bags home when they go to the parks. That's the biggest problem we're having. Because, they're producing too much trash. They're putting on the side of the dumpster, and the city cannot pick it up because they have only one driver, just pick up the, empty the dumpster.
Mr. Yellowman Chili, we really appreciate you, and we rightly align with your cause.
Thank
so
you.
Let us try to get with you on a few of these dates, and we'll coordinate it together.
All right. And also, I have something exciting news for you. But on April 27th, I would like to have a celebration at Cadillac Park.
Okay.
So that's a Saturday. So the Bushland can involve, and our city, we all can participate, and then, people get excited, and then a lot of people can bring trash bags there, and then,
We're happy to look at the date. If you don't mind, we'll get you with some city staff, and we'll see what we can coordinate and work together on. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Mayor, that concludes our sign-ups for public comment.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else here that would like to speak? Well, hang on one second there, Jimmy Joe. I saw Miss. Are you good? Okay, come on down. We'll do James first, and then. Well, why don't y'all just come together?
I'm not taking much time.
We got extra microphone?
You know how we used to always don't mess with Texas? Well, don't mess with Amarillo. Don't mess with Amarillo. It's really sort of sickening to see some of the alleys. But, and another thing is your mama didn't live in this house. Pick up after yourself.
Yes, sir.
Same thing goes on at the gym and stuff like that. The guys leave towels everywhere. Back to an infrastructure thing, and I know I've talked with Donnie and y'all. We've got some new cement streets with that high thing in there. Folks, those things need to be painted. Those things need to stand out. I saw a guy in a pickup truck just made the little quicker turn, and he hit that one. It's a wonder he probably got some damage, and just like we've talked. And I know painting is, I don't know where we're at if we have a paint crew that goes around, but all of our medians are basically invisible when it's raining or and you're at the dark, and I see people bouncing over them. So that's just I'll throw 2 cents at it, or plus taxes.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Travato, please come up.
Mr. Shrink and I are friendly and worthy opponents. But we're very friendly. Yeah. On some things. I want to speak to, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to call earlier. I've been tied up with school stuff. I want to speak to 9B. And I had wanted to talk with Mr. Freeman beforehand, but I didn't have time. And 9E under non-consent items. And I understand it's first reading on ordinance number 8117. And I was wondering why the city is giving up its ability to work with developers in a larger area. I spoke with a consultant on city stuff, and he said he'd never heard of a city giving up their authority or ability to work in that area. And so I would like to ask for more study, and if there's any quick answer why we're doing it, I would love to hear that. And then on 9E, my worthy friend, Mr. Sherlin, there are a lot of people who do not agree with Operation Lone Star. And the governor is openly and intentionally violating the U.S. Constitution. I would suggest that you read Article 6 of the Constitution, which says that federal law is the supreme law of the land. And within his program of Operation Lone Star, he is violating the U.S. Constitution, not just by refusing to allow the federal government to do their job, but under his trespass law, under Operation Lone Star, he is grabbing people, putting them in a prison that he put together, and waiting weeks and months to charge them. That is unconstitutional. And all things being equal, I'm not here to argue the merits of the governor's actions, but I want to say that I think that it's questionable whether the city ought to be grading the legislature or grading the governor. So we've got so many more things in the city that need to be addressing, like no affordable housing for poor and middle-class people, like the Texaco mess out there that's been abandoned, that there are federal funds to clean up that mess. There are federal funds. And we're not dealing with city issues when we're running around trying to say we support the governor in his unconstitutional actions. And those are my comments today.
Ms. Travato, we look forward to the discussion if you hang around. We'll get
Okay.
to those items. Thank you. I look like I have another. If you'll come forward and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Christopher Alvarado, and my address is 1956 South Woodland. I came up here today because recently, a few days now, I've been going to y'all's city meetings and city council meetings because I want to be part of the group now. However, though, I have noticed every time I do go to any of these meetings, it takes me forever. One, because I don't have a car. And two, because this city isn't walkable at all. Or it's sidewalks, everything, it's broken, there's none. Every time I want to go anywhere, forever. I have to take routes, and there's even some streets I can't even cross by because of big highways. So that's an issue that I wish could be fixed in this place, a walkable city, at least, for everyone so they can, people like me who can't afford a car right now, can do stuff for the community and go to all these city meetings to advocate our voices so you can hear them, so everyone else can hear them. And that's all I want to say today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Do I have anyone else here that would like to speak before we move on? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on with our schedule here today. That concludes public comment. We're going to move forward to item 7, our discussion items. Do I have anything from council that you guys need additional information on before we move into item 7B?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 7B, we have Donnie Hooper coming up here for an update on our fleet services. Mr. Hooper.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon, everyone. Talk a little bit about today on our fleet services, and really want to give you an introduction today about our fleet services. I know you heard a lot of this stuff during the budget discussions that took place last spring, but I also want to talk about our challenges that we're facing now, some financial considerations, some recommendations, a little bit of time for Q&A at the end of this. Really what this presentation is about today is managing our cash flows when it comes to our fleet, and different alternatives. Also give you a little bit of history of where we're at as far as some of the big struggles that we're facing with our fleet. So just a little bit of history about it. Our city funds our vehicle replacement through the general fund and operates an internal leasing program that's managed by our fleet services. We also do have some fleet that's funded by the enterprise departments. It makes up about 22% of our fleet. Our internal leasing program establishes a rental rate for each of the pieces of equipment that includes replacement costs or maintenance and repairs. And then we go back and charge our departments a rate for leasing that vehicle from fleet. When the vehicle has reached the end of its service life, it should be replaced. And in some cases, you'll see through this presentation that we're not replacing those at the predicted time that was going to reach the end of the life or end of service life for those vehicles. Other municipalities now, as well as state and federal fleets, are starting to turn to debt issuance, also leases rather than set-aside funding or reserve funding to take care of their fleet issues. This all really began back when COVID began, and we had problems with the manufacturers being able to continue with production of automobiles. That's what started it all, and still to this day we're spending a lot of time catching up with the manufacturers being able to produce enough vehicles to go back and replace vehicles that were ordered in 20, 21, 22, and now up to 23 and 24. Our fleet division right now owns 1,152 pieces of what we call rolling stock. There's more than this in our fleet, but that would include trailers and mowers and things like this. But this is what we call our rolling fleet, our rolling stock, 1,152 pieces of equipment. We have 283 pieces of equipment that are department owned. Now, department owned is not a positive number. That's not something that we see as a good thing. What that really means is that departments are holding on to vehicles after they finish their lease, who say, hey, we've got to get a replacement for that, whatever. They want to hold on to it because they know that they may not have another vehicle coming anytime soon to replace that. So you have a high mileage vehicle that stays in the fleet. It's still in the general fund. It's just now being managed by that department instead of our fleet department. Our total equipment numbers are 1,435 if you add those numbers together. In the general fund, we have 902 of those that are fleet-owned. That's 78%. Again, the other 22% is in our enterprise fund. Our fleet age, and this is one of the more alarming pieces to me when we analyze this and look at fleet every year, is that 23% of our fleet is older than 10 years. Each of those pieces of equipment is in a specific rate group, so each of them have a different lifespan associated with them. A police car, for example, would be on our replacement cycle every 4 years. We would also have a pickup that maybe would work in another department that may be 8 years. You may have a meter reader's truck that's 6 years. They all have different lifespans based on the amount of miles that they put on every year. So 23% of that, again, older than 10 years. 44% of the fleet, 507 units right now are due or past due for replacement. And I know, again, that's something you guys talked about in budget last year. We do have some currently leased equipment. Most of this is heavy equipment that's at our landfill. We have pieces of equipment such as our scrapers or our compactors. The compactor now is running about $1.6 million to purchase a new one. We started leasing those back when the price was around $1.1 million, and they continue to go up each and every year. But again, mostly all that leased equipment is out at the landfill. This is an interesting number here. Our parts cost across the nation, and this is something we took from a national website, has risen 27% over the past 10 years. 17% of that has occurred over the past 2 years. 22 and 23 is where we saw the biggest rise in the increase in parts costs. But if you look at what we're doing as far as parts here at the City of Amarillo, We've seen a 76% increase in our expenditures from 2019. You see, we spent $1.4 million in parts in 2019, $2.5 million in 22. We're on track right now to probably exceed, even though we're at 6% less at the same time last year than we were in 22. We think when we get to our busiest part of the year, when we get into spring and summer, that's really when our maintenance costs go up and we start seeing a lot of parts expenses. But again, most of that's due to the age of our fleet that we talked about in the previous slide. And it costs more to maintain them the older that they get. Vehicle costs, much the same, increases of about 22% across the nation in the last 10 years, with 13% of that occurring in the last 2 years. At the City of Amarillo, our increases as far as the public safety and solid waste equipment goes, you see 55 and 46% on those increases there. These are the vehicles that we replace most often, or that we need to replace most often. And so I want to just show you some numbers of those costs here. This kind of breaks it down. You can see what it looks like. 2019, a pumper truck for the fire department was just over $500,000. It's over $1 million now, 79% increase. Ladder trucks, just over $1 million. Now they're $1.5 million. Police interceptors have gone up $10,000, or 27% increase. Solid waste vehicles, the side loaders that pick up the dumpsters, they've gone up quite a bit, 36%. Automated side loaders, that's the ASLs that pick up the cart programs, have gone up 35%, and our front loaders that do commercial routes have gone up 66% to almost $400,000 for that. We're getting projections right now on ASLs that they're going to be over $400,000 by the time we get to the point of ordering for this next go-round. So what that does, that creates a lot of challenges for us. Currently, right now, we have $19 million in equipment that's due to be replaced. That is right now. That's the 507 units that we talked about. If we were in a normal, if we had the money, we would be ordering 507 units. We're ordering $5 million worth of replacement. That's what we have budgeted, and that's 15 units compared to the 507 that we have. The 15 units that we're going to be replacing, and I'll talk about that in the future slide, are something that we have to look at. The fleet manager has to look at all this stuff and say, well, we have all these vehicles we got to replace. He's not a very popular person when it comes to purchasing for the next year because of the position that we're in right now. But he has to decide what's the most important. With discussions through management, discussions that occur with the different departments, we have to fill the need at that current time. Availability of equipment has also been other issues, production delays, backlogs at manufacturers. You guys know the story. You've heard those stories from us on some of the other challenges that we face. So again, here's the 507 we talked about that are due. They come up to about $19 million in current pricing. We're replacing 15 units that are being ordered, and that's all fire and solid waste. So that's fire trucks and solid waste equipment that makes up that total. So it's not very much when it comes to replacing the units that need to be replaced. And we started looking ahead and thinking about our future needs as well. We want to project out in 5 years how much we're going to have to replace now that we're even behind. We get further and further behind every year. 1,207 additional units are going to need to be replaced over the next 5 years. At current pricing, that's $35 million. We all see the increases, and if it continues with that same trend, that number is going to go up substantially. And that doesn't include our totaled vehicles. So when we total a vehicle out, we have to get that replaced. We don't get the full amount of what the value of that vehicle is, but we also, with the prices going up with the new vehicles, there's an offset there as well. So some of the considerations that we've been looking at, we are in need right now in the public safety side of 25 patrol vehicles that were ordered in 2021, 30 patrol vehicles and liaison vehicles that were ordered in 2022. We still have not received those. We did get some good news, though, in December from the manufacturer that 29 of those are going to be produced. We haven't got any promises, anything past that. And if you know much about the fleet industry, they can tell you we're going to fulfill those orders. They can tell you we've accepted those orders. But until we get VIN numbers back from them that says these are being manufactured, it's a no-go. Well, we have VIN numbers for 29 of those patrol vehicles. I might add to that the majority of these are 2016 models. So they're well over that 4 years that we talked about. So we've had to continue to extend the life of these well past what their useful life is. Fire Marshal's office is also needing 3 pickups for their investigators. The Marshal's office needing a vehicle for them as well. And our Office of Emergency Management is needing a couple of vehicles for their staff. So what we have done is we have started visiting about a master lease agreement with D&M Leasing. We have actually given them a letter of intent that it's not binding at all. The letter of intent basically says your windows are open right now for ordering. We'd like to go ahead and get our name on the list in case we can get something moving forward. And again, that's not binding, but we've done that. for 20 Dodge Patrol Interceptors, 6 Dodge 4x4 pickups, 1 Dodge Charger, and also included with that would be a 10-year evaluation of our fleet. In other words, D&M could come in and take a look at our fleet and say, in the next 10 years, this is how I would suggest that you model this out should we decide to go with some type of leasing model. And I'm not suggesting today that we're going with a leasing model all across the fleet. That would be something that would be discussed during the budget time when we got to that point. Benefits of leasing, it solves our immediate problems that we have with some of these vehicles, particularly right now in public safety. They have a lot of buying power. They buy lots and lots of vehicles every year. So when it comes to the queue of being able to order and get it, they can get it faster than we can. Lower initial costs, reduced upfront costs compared to purchasing vehicles outright. Predictable, and I'll give you an example of that. That list that I gave you is about $1.5 million worth of public safety vehicles. The lease on that for the next 7 months to finish out this budget year is a little over $290,000. I think that's just the estimates that we've got. So you can see the difference up front of what you can get. Now you're going to have to continue to lease those for 3 years, but you also see that you're going to see a turnaround on that in 3 years as well. It's predictable budgeting. It's a fixed monthly payments. And it will also be replaced during its useful life instead of us taking these vehicles that are supposed to be replaced in 4 years and we're replacing them in 8 or 9 years and hoping that we get an order in. It solves that problem as well. There's some other technological upgrades that come with new equipment as well, and the safety factor of having people, especially in public safety, that are driving vehicles that are well past their age, presents a safety issue. Being able to provide a better level of service to our customers is what this discussion is about. So I wanted to talk a little bit about D&M. I will introduce, and Ed Kane is here. Ed, if you wave your hand back there. Ed Kane is the president of Government and Commercial Divisions for D&M Leasing. I actually met Ed when I was at TDM and some leases that we were working with them on, and I was very impressed with their product. So we brought him up for a meeting, and we met with several of the leadership team and talked about some of these issues, just see if we could investigate it close enough that we could feel comfortable bringing something before council. Jason Jupe is also here as well. Jason, raise your hand back there. I wanted to introduce Jason because Jason is our new fleet superintendent. Jason took over for Glenn Lavender, who retired a couple of weeks ago after 33 and a half years of service. Jason has been working under him. In fact, when I came to the city of Amarillo in 2018, he was the first interview panel that I was on to interview for that position. Jason is fantastic, and he's going to do really well in our fleet division. But he has a challenging job. If you think about what he has to do with that $5 million and what he has in front of him that needs to be replaced. He also runs the shop that does all the repairs as well. I wanted to show you this list of D&M customers. This is just a select list. They also have the city of Portland, Oregon. They're nationwide. But some of the big people that they have here in the state of Texas through a Texmas contract is with Department of Public Safety, Texas General Land Office, Comptroller's Office, TABC, and others, as you can see on that list right there. So our recommendations that we're bringing to you with this presentation is that we would be able to enter into a master lease agreement with D&M Leasing, and what this means is no obligation to us to lease anything. You have to have a lease agreement in place in order for us to lease anything. It's not a specific amount of vehicles. It's mainly looking at this public safety piece that we just put before you, and it's also, we would also like to look at those 20 patrol units, the 6 pickups, and the 1 Charger. Complete the 10-year study, and then come back and present recommendations during the budget time for what we might look at as a larger picture when it comes to fleet. So I'm sure that generates some questions for you, so I can either answer those questions or Ed doesn't mind coming up and answering questions when it comes to the leasing business, and I can entertain that now if you have any.
Questions, council?
My question would be, Laura, have we run the numbers, like 5, 10 year? What does it look like?
So I worked with Donnie a little bit on looking at just kind of this first option. And again, we're kind of thinking maybe more of like a pilot project just to see how this works out for us. And it was very interesting. And I don't know if Donnie has his spreadsheet available, but when you look at the total cost if we were to outright buy versus the leasing option, they are almost completely equal. So what it gains for us, thank you. What it gains for us is just the lower upfront expenditure, which can be handled a couple of ways. You could either take that fund, the extra funds, and leave it in the bank where we're actually earning a lot of interest right now. I mean, interest rates are very favorable at this point. Or you could start taking some other bites at the replacement list that, as Donnie mentioned, it's a very long replacement list. We are well past the useful lives. And again, I haven't seen what the catch is on this, if there is one, but from straight running the numbers, there's about let's see, this is 27 units that we're looking at. And I'm completely stealing all of Donnie's thunder here because he ran the numbers for me, but I verified them. And so to purchase it, we were looking at $1,567,000 to do the leasing option over the life of the lease. It would be $1,581,979. That's a difference of just under $15,000.
But that's over 3 years.
So that is over 3 years on the for the Durangos and
4 years for the other unit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but in budget, like this year, we have $5 million set aside. So like you said, either we set that money and earn interest or we take another bite at the 500 vehicles that we need to replace.
That's a very good question. And actually, these units that we're talking about today on the leasing option are outside of that $5 million. At the first of Donnie's presentation, he mentioned that the $5 million is going to replace how many units? 15 units, and that's all fire trucks, and I say fire trucks, different types of fire trucks, solid waste trucks, and that's it. Yep, side loaders and fire trucks. These are to start getting some vehicles replaced for our police officers, fire marshal, and city marshal areas. And so these are outside. So Donnie and I were talking, well, what does that look like from, we have $5 million and we need for this year, we would need just under $300,000. So there's a couple of things. One is I don't think we've ordered all of the vehicles yet with the $5 million. So we could look at some options on that for one thing. We do also have reserves and a capital reserve that we could potentially tap into to try to start this pilot program, knowing that we have a lot of vehicles on order and we're still holding on to that money in the bank right now because, as Donnie mentioned, we had 50 police units that were ordered over the last 2 years, and we're looking to get those
There's actually 55
I'm sorry.
delays on units in there.
Absolutely, and we're not guaranteed to get all of them, even 29 of those this year. So you have that difference as well. So the money is still sitting in the bank. I mean, it's on order at this point. Some of those we don't even know if we're going to get the orders in, or some of them we've had an order in place for 2 years and we may start getting some in, but don't know if and when we will get the others. So there's a couple of options there, and I know I'll be the first to say I don't like necessarily borrowing from money that we're already, semi-committed to in another area. But I think the other thing is on the replacement side, we don't know that we're going to get the items in that we even ordered initially. We haven't ordered the fire trucks and the side loaders yet. I have been in discussion, and so Donnie's been in those discussions as well with our fire chief and his staff, even looking at options related to the fire trucks, whether that's a leasing type option, potentially even an option to do like a 7-year tax note because we can get a lower interest rate on that, which also would mean less cash expended up front than outright buying it. So we're actually talking about several options here. And I think that we could easily cover this $292,000 even if we temporarily dipped into reserves, knowing that we haven't even expended everything that's earmarked at this point. Does that kind of help you?
And we also have current CIP that was approved in the budget
yes.
for vehicles, as well as regular budget items or for new additions to the fleet, that we might be able to take some of that and lease from that money, take the cash and put it toward. If that makes sense.
Are the leased vehicles more readily available? I mean, I don't know if these guys can speak
Yes.
to that
Yes.
versus
Yes.
us ordering them. So if we need them and we're on the list, we get them.
Pretty much.
typically.
We have a much higher chance of getting it.
We do, and I'll say on this one, the Durangos, so there's a window, that an order bank that opens up when you're allowed to order. And that's all you get. Once that order bank closes with the different automobile groups. Once it closes, you're done until the next year. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
The reason that we looked at Dodges is because that window bank was open and they felt confident they could get those. Now, the pickups and the Dodge Chargers on there, they have those available now. They're on the ground and ready. As soon as we do something, we could have those sent toward us.
So we talked about this during budget.
We did.
We kicked this around.
Yes.
And, is this kind of,
yes, this is kind of the
So-
first round of all of that as well. You're going to hear a lot more about this coming from all of us from different angles. And it's not just we're not taking the approach of maybe a one-size-fits-all for leasing for the entire fleet. Like, we're
Right.
kind of wanting to do it in different sections just to see. And we know, police vehicles is a big need. The other thing, as far as funding on this, we have vehicles that I know our officers are using that are 10 years old. And I'm sure you could only imagine how much we're putting into those vehicles this year alone just to keep them repaired and maintained. If we got new vehicles in, everything's under warranty. And so we're just doing preventative maintenance. So you're saving on that ongoing expensive repair and maintenance cost that I think could help offset some of this $292 this year for us.
So we've run the numbers, I'm guessing,
Yes.
just getting this out there, for the depreciation of the assets that we actually purchase versus the maintenance of the vehicles we actually purchase versus the cost of the lease. That's what we're looking at, right? Looking at
Yes.
efficiencies.
That's
seeing if
a
this
great
makes sense,
point.
And depending
And
on,
I think one thing that Donnie has seen is that we have paid for our vehicles just in repair and maintenance costs because we're keeping them so long, well, at least 2 times over.
yeah.
And they're not worth anything when we get done with it.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Left at all.
Well, and absolutely. And the other thing, especially our public safety areas, we want to make sure they have a good, reliable vehicle that they're jumping into to respond to any kind of an emergency. So that was kind of why we were focusing on this group first, just because we know there's a big need on the public safety side.
One other thing that we talked about, too, that might be important to mention is that the morale of the entire organization changes, even just in them hearing that this was a possibility. I can't tell you how many people picked up the phone and called and said, are we really looking at doing it? We're going to be able to get our vehicles replaced? And we said, well, we're just talking about it now. But when you talk about the morale of an organization as a whole, it changes that a lot. And we talked to Ed and his group about that and asked if they saw a difference in that. And, of course, the answer was yes. So
Sure.
It's kind of a side note, but I think it's an important piece as well.
I think the numbers work. I think it's a great idea. I think we all talked about that during budget. So,
And again, this is, for 27 units that we kind of want to start with, and this isn't, taking over the whole fleet or anything like that. We want to work with this group to do a full-blown analysis of, portions of our fleet. And again, I've been talking with our fire chief and his team about some other options because the fire equipment is some of the very most expensive equipment we have. And so we're trying to look at this from multiple angles per y'all's request during budget because we told you we've got $5 million. That barely puts a dent in what we need. But we're going to figure out a way to make it work. And so this is us trying to explore some options to start trying to make some things work.
thank you.
She answered most of them. Is this the only company y'all are looking at leasing from?
We have, in my career, we've looked at others. We have gone through and looked at their programs. And I think that's part of the analysis that we would have to do leading up to budget discussions. Is that the flavor of the council for us to go and look at other options? We can certainly do that. I think for this immediate need, out of all the programs that I've looked at, this would be the most advantageous for our immediate need that we have right now.
Okay. And then my last question is specifically like with police vehicles, like upfitting them, is this something that company's going to do, or is this going to get outsourced to somewhere
We
else?
have, so our police department uses a specific upfitter. They can send those directly to that upfitter, or they also have their own upfitter that they can use. So we have multiple options with that. But they have, like I said, their own upfitter. We would choose on this for the Durangos specifically at the request of the chief to have those sent to the upfitter that they're comfortable with using. The prices are relatively the same. But the key to that is being able to make sure that we have our orders in and that they can get that equipment. So as soon as it lands on the ground, they can start the upfit process. And that's what they use Defender upfitting with the PD right now, and they're very happy with what they do. some of the other vehicles that are in this package, they need some upfitting, but we're going to do that in-house when they get here.
Okay.
And we have that option to do that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? No? Questions, sir?
Yeah. So have we, so with the vehicles that we have, I mean, to begin with, I mean, do we absolutely need every vehicle that we have? I mean, are we strapped? Are there any ways that we could, if we're looking at this, that we have to replace all of these vehicles?
I think that the idea of what we're talking about today is we have an immediate need, a gap that we need to fill. But I think we do need to look at the overall bigger picture of what's coming in the next 5 years and the next 10 years. If that's answering your question, I think we need to evaluate all that. We know that we're not going to catch up unless we have a large amount of cash at budget time that's going to come in, we're going to come into.
Mm-hmm. Well, I ask that because it seems like the story of our life is catch up.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
like
sir.
we've got to catch up with streets. We've got to catch
Yes,
up
sir.
with sewer lines.
Exactly.
Now we've got to catch up with automobiles.
I think that's why we feel like we can come here today with this presentation, because we've had that from council that told us, hey, we're the ones to talk about catching up. So I think that's why we're here.
Yeah, lucky us. So,
Yeah.
But I guess, the other thing is, so as I sit and learn about government, a couple of things in my personal life, I do not want to have debt, but I realize in government you're not going to get things accomplished. So I understand that there's value of good debt that we've talked about, and we're trying to use that. In my personal life, I would never lease a vehicle.
Correct.
So I'm trying to get my arm wrapped around the idea of, okay, and I've worked in shared services before where, I had to use them to lease vehicles, and I'm telling you, I still did not get my head around, because I wasn't seeing that much on my P&L that would show me. There's lots of things in theory on the leasing part of it, so I don't know what information you would have from other communities that would kind of get me more comfortable on this. I understand the part about the savings on the maintenance, and yeah, you've got it all timed out just right to be able to figure out when you want to get rid of the vehicle or do those things. And then you've given me a lot of numbers. I think just being able to see the visual, okay, if we're going down one route of paying versus the other route, just to kind of, because I can't really visualize, from the financial standpoint, kind of what you're talking about, in this kind of test that we're talking about doing.
Okay. Yeah, and we can come back to you and bring you some. In fact, I have some references that are. I've got numbers that I'm planning to call after this meeting. The references for D&M, some other cities that are using them that would be more comparable to what we're wanting to do. I probably will not contact any of the state agencies, but I want to find out. I have a list of 12 questions that I want to ask them that are probably right along the line with what you're wanting to know.
Okay.
And I can pass that along to council.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? No. I think what I'm hearing from Councilman Simpson is that, we still have an interest, I think, all across the council for this. We do need some additional research and some study done so we can make sure this is a good long-term plan. What I heard Mrs. Storrs say is kind of a pilot program. And so if you look at it, we've got 6 months really before budget. This gives us a good, adequate time to go ahead and push a pilot forward like this. Maybe for our council, all we might want would just be maybe 2 more vendors to quote this so that we didn't just jump out there blindly. And I think your recommendation carries a lot of weight. But on the verification side, maybe we would see a couple of additional leasing companies put forward like, oh, well, this is how much it would cost, for apples to apples. And then I don't know, Councilman Simpson, I think if you got him comfortable, I think the rest of us would be comfortable on the lease. I see a lot of upside on the leasing. And the reason being is because I know there for a little while we were taking police vehicles apart to fix the ones that we needed to keep running because we couldn't get parts.
That's true.
And so, volatile markets and other things that are going on globally may put us back in the same situation where we may not have everything we need. And so the lease has a lot of upside, and I think it does start to get us out of the hole. If I could pay cash for a vehicle and I had an asset, not a liability, I'm with you. I think that the lease doesn't make sense. Right. However, if I'm paying cash for a liability that's going to turn into a liability that I have to give away, I like the lease as long as we can keep it within the metrics of what our budget is and what the market holds.
I think we match that line of thinking exactly, and to just reiterate, I think what we want to do is just fill this gap now, and then and I know that in talking with Mr. Kane and his group, and we can talk to others as well, that analysis can be done within that 6-month period easily to see if we have what the path forward might be and what our recommendations as staff would be, not what the recommendations of the leasing company are, what our recommendations as staff would be after we look at all those packages and compare that with what we would have to have apple to apple with budget, with cash up front to do that.
Would the expectation be, though, that we could move forward with a leasing company here within the 6 months to fill this gap so that when budget comes around, we have the pilot program fleshed out, and we now know, oh, this is something we could try to implement.
And a lot of the reason that we're here today is because those windows that we talked about that open up, we can't buy from dealerships. We can only buy from government-approved vendors such as Caldwell, places like that. Now, they have different buying power. Leasing companies do. They can buy from dealerships. They can buy from government. They can buy from multiple places. When those windows open, you have to get your orders placed. If you don't, it'll be next year. We're looking at another year. So that's why we're kind of coming with a sense of urgency, at least for this gap at this point in time.
Okay. You have what you need from us to move forward?
I just wanted to clarify, on the 2 quotes, are you talking for after the pilot, for if we do a big overall lease program? Because that would probably delay this initial push for these public safety vehicles by months, I would say, to go through the process with a couple of others.
I think I'd want some guidance from my council on that if that's something they'd be willing to look at with this recommended vendor as a standalone.
I don't know, would we do this for anything else? Would we look at more than one vendor? I mean, I understand the time crunch on it, but principally, if we're just going to do this for one thing, then how much money are we looking at spending?
Typically, leases, you don't have to go through the normal bidding process. You work with the one that you think will provide you the best value, has the vehicles you need, can move quicker. It would just slow the process as far as getting these vehicles. So it's really just a value-based decision for council.
I'm okay moving forward with these 27. Like you said, just my opinion on these as a test. If the window's open and we can get these 27 vehicles and we're spending like $292, is that what you said? Over 3 years, we have that extra $5 million, or the difference in that. Okay, maybe wrong number.
292 for 7 months.
Yeah, 292 is this fiscal year.
Okay,
and then it's about 1.5 in total over the life of the leases.
Okay.
The Durango police vehicles would be over a 3-year period, and the other ones would be over a 4-year period.
Yeah. Mayor, I'm okay with moving forward with these as a test program. I would not want to delay this and get us further in a hole. If we're already 500 vehicles behind, we can move forward with these.
If I could share one other thing for what it's worth, we've looked at leasing with various companies over the years. And I think this was the first one that I was made aware of that really seemed to work and to fit what our needs are here at the city. And Donnie could go into more of the differences on what some of the leasing companies offer. But I think the other thing is that this group allows you to enter into a master lease agreement, and you can do as little or as much as you want. And I really like that, because I think a lot of the groups we talked to, it was more, we want your whole fleet, or we want a whole portion of your fleet. And this is something we felt like we really could do a better pilot project with a leasing company like this. And if I'm misspeaking, Donnie, please let me know. But we have looked at leasing for years, and I'm with you, Councilmember Simpson. I never had an appetite for leasing. What we've experienced over the past couple of years with the rise in the price of vehicles, the price of auto parts, and then the lack of ability to get anything in, kind of puts us at a different point to relook at everything. So for what it's worth.
I think we're under a little bit of a time crunch to solve this problem. You know, if our average age of fleets, I mean, this is in the grand scheme of things, but I think going ahead and testing it now, I would not have a problem with moving ahead at this point.
Okay. Councilman Sherlin, you got anything on it? Okay. On the master leasing agreement, there would be no restrictions on having multiple leasing agreements, or would that have a?
There would not be.
Okay, so if we did this pilot, we don't have a long-term obligation, something that would tie our hands from.
Am I answering that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, please come forward. Tell us your name again, sir.
Ed Kane. We are, just to make you all feel a little bit more comfortable, you're not even allowed to go ahead and deal with government unless you have gone through the prerequisites about procurement and doing everything appropriately. D&M was specifically asked by the governor's office to explore leasing for the state of Texas. We did a 6-year research, brought legislation to the state of Texas, and we were single-handedly awarded a contract for leasing to state agencies. Our first customer through that is the comptroller's office. So just to let you know, we have been vetted. We were going to be doing this through a co-op contract called Buy Board, which once again says that we've got stated contractual arrangements around the pricing. We can't vary from it. Everything meets all of the procurement requirements that a governmental entity would need to do. The reason why people lease, and I pay cash for everything that I can pay cash for, so I agree with that. I have leased vehicles to Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, all sorts of corporations that have plenty of money. The reason why people lease is because of cash flow. The reason why governments are beginning to lease now is because they cannot keep up with the capital procurement requirements that are out there. Vehicles have risen in cost so much, and I'm going to date myself, but a pickup truck that when I first started doing this 35 years ago that was $5,000 is now close to $50,000. And governments cannot write a check for $50,000 for every vehicle and continue to do it. So what we're doing is we're bringing the math and the science that corporations have been doing for the last 50 years to government. And it's not rocket science. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's pretty simplistic. You just figure out how much that vehicle costs brand new, what it's going to be worth when you go to get rid of it, and we go to get rid of it right around the time that the maintenance costs really start rising and before resale tanks. So because you have lower operating costs, because you don't have the high maintenance costs like Donnie was talking about, when you run a vehicle into the ground and you're running a police cruiser for 8 years when it should have been replaced after 4, you're just putting money into rebuilding engines, transmissions, and all that into a vehicle that's worth nothing. So all we're doing is just getting you to get on a cycle program so that Laura is able to know each and every year she can bring you, this is what the budget's going to be for the vehicles. We do this for municipalities day in and day out. We're doing them for state agencies. It's just a matter of cycling the vehicles and being able to get them, and we can get you the vehicles that you need. And so Donnie's exactly right, and Andrew brought it up. If you don't place your order right now, we're not going to be able to get the Rams that we're trying to get. They've already had cutoffs for Chevrolet and for Ford. And government right now is at they're the last ones that are being fed vehicles. It goes to retail consumers first, then it goes to commercial, then it goes to government. And so government has been, that's the reason why everybody puts in orders, and then you sit around and wait to see if the manufacturer is going to build them. If they can build them and sell them to a retail or a commercial customer where they get to make a bunch of money, they're going to do it that way. And they're just going to hang on to your orders to see, okay, if we've got a little extra production capability, then we'll go ahead and produce that vehicle. But this is a way for you to jumpstart the program. It allows you to go ahead and get multiple vehicles for the cost of just going out and buying one. So that's why municipalities are doing it. You'd be able to go out and buy 3 Durangos. I mean, the cost to purchase one Durango, you could lease 3. So that's the concept. And then you quickly renew your fleet, get them into a cycling program, eliminate the maintenance costs, lower the operating costs, and that's all we're doing. But I do want you to feel comfortable about, we have been vetted. We've been in the state of Texas for 40-plus years, and we wouldn't have the TexMAS contract if we weren't completely vetted.
Yeah. No, we appreciate the additional info. Yeah, thank you for being here today.
I was sitting back there just wanting to talk, so thank you.
It was helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I look at this as possibly setting the city and future councils up in a good position. We're not faced with this. That if we keep that on the budget, we kind of know our fixed cost. Maintenance is not nearly an issue. So future councils or the city is just in a better position with newer vehicles.
I think we're agreed. So, yeah, you should have what you need from us. I think we're good.
I think we have everything we need, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you.
Item 7C is our 24-25 fiscal year budget policy. Ms. Laura Storrs.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So it's that time of year we get to start talking about budget again. So I know everybody is excited about that. So it comes around very quickly. And so just wanted to kind of lead off before we're going to be starting on budget internally from a staff perspective. Probably, well, in the finance area, we'll be starting later this month, and then we'll be bringing departments in very quickly. So wanted to get ahead of that and talk to you all about a few things, and wanted to continue the conversation. I feel like sometimes we're doing things, we've done things a little bit backwards, especially this past year as we had you all coming on into new positions, and we were trying to bring you up to speed and say, okay, we formed a budget, and what are your thoughts on this? So maybe this year we're wanting to kind of get your thoughts ahead of time. So a couple of things, and I am certainly not needing necessarily direction from you all today, but things to start thinking about. So the first thing is the timing of your adoption of your budget and your tax rate. So as you guys all remember, there's a couple of things that you have to look at. There's some timing aspects from whether you're wanting to look at a budget that is below the voter approval tax rate, which is that tax rate that's about 3.5% higher than the prior year's revenue from an operating and maintenance standpoint. Or if you might be interested in looking at calling an election for a voter approval tax rate. And I know that this is way early on before, we would really have any idea what might even shape that. But I wanted to give you some key dates. So August 19th is the last day you can call an election for November, which is when a voter approval tax rate election would have to go forward. So I was kind of starting down the road of building 2 budget calendars because we need to start getting you all some dates. So y'all can kind of either start reserving your calendars or letting me know if we need to go a different direction. So there's 2 calendars at play. One would be to accommodate an election. That means everything that we do, including all of the various readings of the budget and the tax rate that we went through in the council meetings, would have to be done before August 19th. So that pushes everything back from what we did last year. Or we could, if you all wanted to say, we're not thinking we would do any sort of an election, we have till September 30th. So that gives us a little bit, almost a month and a half longer. So things to be thinking about, and I can build out the calendar either way. When the state changed the law related to the automatic election, if you go over the voter approval tax rate, my initial thought was I'll always just do budget in time for a council to call an election. But as we got into it last year, I think you guys all realized we needed as much time as we could get to get through the budget and make sure everybody was comfortable with it. So we could certainly formulate that either way. The other thing I wanted you all to start thinking about is I think we did a total of 7 full days of budget workshops last year. Hopefully they were productive for you all. I know I learned a lot, and hopefully you all did as well. And we broadcasted those to the public, which I got a lot of feedback from citizens about that. I'm sure you all did as well. But things to think about this next year. Do we want to try to plan for another 7 days, kind of spread out over time? Do we want to try to consolidate that down a little bit? Still thinking broadcasting that to the public. I think that was a really good thing from everybody's viewpoint. The other thing is, we had every department come up and give brief updates about budgets. We can certainly do something similar to that again this year, or if there's certain targeted areas y'all want us to spend more time on, we could do that as well. We included AEDC in our budget workshops last year, so things to think about. And then on CIP, we talked about capital. We focused heavily on that year 1 of capital because that's what actually gets approved in the budget. So another thing, just if you all have any feedback on some of that, I would certainly appreciate it. And then we can start talking about if there's certain higher priorities that you all would like us to focus on. We just talked about one that we know we're going to be bringing to you guys this during budget is discussion about leasing options related to the fleet. We do know there's some really big items out there that we are going to need to discuss. I'm planning to, I've almost got it together, a good highlight of kind of the major points from the current year's budget, what we've done. As a reminder, so what we did with property tax rate, what we did with our water and sewer rate, our drainage rate, capital, all those things. So I was thinking I could either send it out to all of you guys, post it on the forum page, or present it here as kind of this is the recap of what we did in the current year budget. So, if y'all have any direction on, hey, I know one thing we talked about was let's go ahead and adjust the drainage rates all at once, to get as much done as we can. So maybe we're not doing small incremental ones across time. So that might be something that you all feel comfortable going ahead and kind of saying, hey, we want to see a budget built this way around those drainage rates. One other thing, we did with the property tax rate, you all chose to lower the operating and maintenance side of the property tax rate to do a debt issuance that's coming up here in March. We have it advertised right now to help fund some capital projects for streets. Is that something, that portion, that debt service rate's going to roll onto your tax rate this next year? It'll be on the INS side, but is that something that y'all want to, us to build out another year of a plan like that? We have big needs coming up. The Hollywood Road wastewater plant. We all know that's a big project coming up. We have some early on projections of what we might need to start thinking about from maybe a debt issuance standpoint. We have meet and confer with both of our police and fire departments that's starting up very quickly. So we may have some feedback on that that's needing to come forward on budget. So it's never too early to start kind of thinking through some of these items. So I think my biggest, maybe my feedback I would appreciate from you guys is, again, we want your input as much as possible at this point so we can kind of build the budget to your expectations. Of course, we have, your pillars that you put in place. We can absolutely do that, but it's always good to kind of get a feel from what y'all are thinking from maybe rate standpoint, property tax standpoint, those things, so we can make sure that we're formulating a budget that way. So as I put together highlights related to the current year budget and then things to think about for next year's budget, would you all like me to present it at an upcoming meeting for us to have an open conversation about? Would you like me to post it on the forum? Y'all can start kind of discussing that way. Or do you want me just to send it to you guys and then individually you can give me feedback on it? What are y'all's preference?
I like the forum. Forum idea
Okay.
for me.
You like message board?
Yeah.
I kind of like you sending it to me, and that way I can ask questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Any other preferences?
I like all the above.
Well, and we can do that too. So absolutely.
No, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things, just a couple of logistical things. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know if we want to get into this today, but number of days, time, and schedule. Boy, I think it would just be better if we could get that mapped out as far in advance.
Yes,
this
I
time.
agree.
I know. The other thing that might be beneficial to think about is, we were kind of going and blowing and kind of covering things, and we were mixing things up and that kind of stuff. Boy, number one, it'd be really nice to have a real good concrete schedule on what we're going to be talking about each day.
Sure.
And maybe discipline ourselves to a time limit in each area.
Okay.
Because I did notice last time, you would have staff people that said, we're going to hit your budget at 2 o'clock, and then Tom asked all these questions. And then, we've got them sitting around and all that. So I don't know, just those are some logistical things
Sure.
that might be worth
Yeah.
considering. But and then I had mentioned to the city manager, one thing, and hopefully now we can get working on it while there's enough time, is while that budget is really thick, what would be nice is if we could have like a 4-page executive summary that has where I can really get a good idea very briefly on how we're doing on the various revenue sources, those types of things. I think you can talk with Andrew kind of about the details on that, but I think, starting at a high level before we begin to dig in may reveal some things, and there was a couple of things that I suggested on him that we can kind of monitor. So that would be my only other suggestion kind of right now, is because I know may take a little bit of time, but I think putting some type of summary together where I've got a 4-page summary, and I've got a very good feeling. I know exactly where we are by looking at that on the revenue side, the expense side, those types of things, category expenses, that kind of thing. So that would
Sure.
be the only thing I would add at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we bring a quarterly budget update to you all. It's more selective in the information. We focus heavily on general fund and then kind of high level water and sewer and drainage. But we could expand that a little bit more maybe to get you guys a better grasp on like an executive summary look at where we're at that point or at this point in time for the year. And maybe that would help you all, because we talk a lot about sales tax, we can, property tax, that kind of stuff, but, maybe giving you a better look, how all revenues are performing, in total, and then expenses as well. So you can just, and if there's anything extenuating going on, we could kind of outline that through it. So, yeah, absolutely. And to your point, logistics work a lot better if we kind of have a feel for maybe how much time y'all are wanting to spend in budget workshops. So, historically, we've done about 3 to 4 days. Last year we did about 7 days, and we can do somewhere in between. We can go longer, shorter. I think it's mainly what you guys feel like you can tolerate and be productive in getting a good grasp on that budget. And also just being conscious of everyone's time, because I know you all are very busy, and making sure that we get this on your calendars as soon as possible is probably going to be helpful for everyone. So,
Something I'd like to ask, you said you'd be having departments coming in pretty soon for budget discussions, correct?
So yes, we do a big budget kickoff with some of the priorities and initiatives we know are planning to go on, which is where we're hoping to get some feedback from you guys on what y'all are hoping to see in a budget, so we can share that with them, and then they will start working on their operating budgets. Yeah, and we'll be training them on software, that kind of stuff.
When you have those discussions, would it be possible maybe us just to sit in?
Yes, I mean we could absolutely facilitate something like that. Yeah,
That's great for you, Tom.
Well, I mean, what I'm thinking about is, if I'm sitting there listening to the discussion,
yes,
not saying I want to interject anything,
okay,
but I just want to be there to hear how this discussion goes, to where I have a better conceptual idea of where this idea came from, how we got from here to there. Because when we get into budget discussions, we're seeing the 30,000-foot view.
It's a great point.
I'd like to get down to like 500-foot view.
Okay.
So I have a similar note here, but like a different approach.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
rather than us sitting in with you and your staff for like maybe hearing, this isn't my favorite idea, but it's an idea, and all of the miscommunication that could go on, I would want to get alternative creative ideas disclosed to council.
Okay.
So in the way in which you took 30 different departments and you boiled them down to say, well, here's really our 10 big movers, so you're not really trying to sit in on all 30. But then out of these 10, we actually have 3 or 4 pretty large ideas. Like Fleet may come in and say, hey, my idea is we go to nothing but leases all the way across except for these real heavy pieces of equipment. Well, that's a pretty big creative change to the overall budget, right? So those would be the things that I would like brought to council independently. I would prefer the independent communication over message board on the front end.
Okay.
I think once we did have kind of a roadmap, we know where we're going, I think it's fine to have the message board discussions.
Okay.
I would hope to avoid some of the additional work that may take place, and one of us just stating something that may not have been accurate.
Okay.
Like, well, we thought that's what we had, and it turns out we don't, right? So I could see some benefit in not having that out there. And I didn't mean to cut anybody off on this one, but I wanted to comment on that one.
I've got one other thing I think that would be helpful, because and I think maybe this could be a time saver but beneficial as well, because what I'm going to be looking for and what I kind of look for this year, again, going back to looking at the trends.
Yes.
But one thing that really catches my attention is when there are variances. So if we budgeted $5 million this year, and we're budgeting $6 million next year. And when I see percentages that are up 5%, 10%, 15%, or even down, those are going to be things that when the spending is pretty steady, that kind of say, okay, I understand. It's kind of on a steady flow. It's kind of been trending that way. So, maybe being prepared in advance, because I know sometimes we would ask about those variances, and then we'd have to spend some time going in and kind of figuring out what those were. But even in the budget book or something like that, just to say, that might save a whole lot of time so that we don't have to spend the time either answering the question, asking the question during it, if there are things that just have that variances on there, so we can say, well, why is this spending down? Why is it up? It may help expedite some time that we don't have to discuss and research during that day, because I just remember that seemed to happen a couple of times when we were probably added to our time that we could probably expedite that pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
Hold your thought. Let me go back to Councilman Sherlin here real quick, because I'm not tying your hands, keeping you from being involved as much as you want to be. Just trying to maybe work out some of that so you get a chance to hear it before you go and sit in on it. So the thought would be, well, you've got these creative ideas and these are large changes. Individually with each staff, with each council member, we could hear those prior to getting to a workshop. Then we have time to formulate, analyze, and bring maybe a change. So it doesn't get presented at workshop as a take it or leave it. Sometimes it gets presented at workshop like, I have heard this, but these are the changes. So I just want to go back to you real quick and see if you're comfortable with that, or okay.
And so I'm also thinking maybe, and I may have misunderstood kind of what you were asking, but possibly it might be good for you guys to hear what we're communicating to the departments as well, on how they should go forward and work on their budgets. So then you guys kind of know what what we've asked them to go do from our standpoint. And then as they start bringing ideas back, and we start saying, okay, we think this might be feasible to go forward. These are, maybe at some point, we could have some of those that we could share with you guys as well. So if it sparked as some interest, that y'all could say, well, wait a second, we want to look and see what we can do about some of these ideas that didn't maybe come through on the original recommendation. Would that work for you? Yeah. Okay, great. And so, Mayor, to your point, or Don, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
It's okay. I can add.
Well, go ahead. You go first.
Well, I would tack on to, I think this is what Les maybe this was getting at. You remember in the binder we'd have, we'd go through each deal. If we can agree on like a percentage change, up or down,
sure.
To say if there is that, can there be a little bullet point of an explanation of why? Because like you said, we always ask those questions and it would be, we'd come through that and go, did you see this? Oh,
I know.
Why is this up? So if we could, I think is that kind of what you were saying?
Well, yeah, we could say maybe, I don't know what it would be, 3%, 5%, whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get into small dollar amounts.
Exactly, and it's,
But I think just in general, if it's a change of X dollars, more or X percent or something, but you guys could figure out the metrics.
We could work on reasonableness.
And
we may not, y'all remember those reports, because we kind of run out a little bit of room, but we might be able to have something that is in addition with it, that references all of that. Let us work through the logistics on that. And I think we can work to get you guys some explanations up front about some of those larger variances, one way or the other. So then we don't even have to necessarily discuss unless y'all want to going further. Yeah.
And I would say we probably, in my opinion, we discuss it, but I think to get through that budget, we all talked about that. I would think at least 5 days and maybe go from there. If we streamline it, we have some of those explanations ahead, and at least there's some learning that's happened since last time, that we know we have a little bit better grasp. I would say to maybe calendar, plan for 5 days. And I'm open to whatever, but like Les said, let's just get it on the calendar to see what it is.
I think that's a good idea.
How many days we think or what,
And one thing we might do, and again, I don't know when the budget book preparation begins, but I know there's a lot of work into it. It might just be interesting getting some feedback, or there's some things that we really don't think we need in that. I know that, but you've got a lot of work to do.
A lot of ideas.
If there's anything that we say, I don't really know if I need that summary in there, and maybe all 5 of us won't agree on it, but it might just be something that again would save you time, make it more efficient, make efficient use of our time as well to kind of figure out what do we really need in there for us to be able to look at what we want to review.
Okay. It's a good idea.
Councilman Kraft, anything on your end?
No.
Can I throw out some specifics that I think would be helpful, or you don't want those?
Oh, no, I'm all ears.
And then you guys, I would love some feedback if you're like, yeah, no, it's a bad idea, we shouldn't have done it. So, 1 million deduction, roughly, off of our budget, right? That means you're going to need to pay $1 million in debt service. That's roughly a cent, or no, it wasn't. It was less than a cent.
Yes, it's less than a cent.
Went to our INS side, got us 13.4 million. Might be 14 million, this next go round or whatever. Keeping that in there, building that in the budget for an ongoing streets allocation, trying to get to more street repair and more replacement. And doing that continuously, trying to continually work that in over the years so that it comes back around and future councils thank us. No tax increase other than the 3.5%, and then pulling that back down to have that money once again allocated for that debt service on the INS side. Anything on that, gentlemen? Not saying you got to agree now. I'm just saying, I think it's good for you to hear it, that this is probably where we were. I think we're still sitting here. I don't find this year to be a good year for us to try to go and put forward a proposition with an election coming.
And that will certainly change up what timing looks like, because as I mentioned earlier, you get almost a month and a half longer to work through your approvals of your budget and your property tax rate. So, but if there's any thoughts that we might go down that road, we need to pull everything back as far as we can. So we are certainly good either way, just whatever you guys direct us on.
I think it'd be great for us to see in this budget process how we can start looking at, okay, these are our needs, and we're not going to get there, we're going to have to cut a service, or these are our needs, we can get there based on what we have available. Now, we've got to prioritize, and we can't get everything all in one year, but we can at least keep the things moving we need. No drainage increase, leaving that pretty much static for hopefully what would be 4 more years. I'd like to see no water and sewer increase, just looking at revenues from additional customers that are coming online and all of that. And when I say no increase, I think I'd safely say that on a small average use. So our typical residential user,
Yes.
Trying to not touch that one again. And then if we had to, we would be looking at more of our commercial rate.
Okay, now if we are looking to start addressing the Hollywood wastewater plants, do you have different thoughts on that? Because that could be.
I do. I was not going to include that as
Okay.
as a factor in this because it is such a large item. It's in any other, if it wasn't in an enterprise fund, it would be a proposition. And that's the only way you're going to do it, And so it would be, hey, if you want to flush the toilets, vote yes. If you don't care if we have toilets, it's fine to vote no. This is not going to be that way, but we really need our messaging to be that so that our citizens understand this is not something that we're building into the budget. This is not something that we get to account for. This is either something we're fixing or we're not going to have.
Okay. Yeah,
So I would like to see what it looks like without that built in.
Okay.
I would like to see, I know Meet and Confer's coming on, and I would like to see what you guys are anticipating in those salaries.
Okay.
Projected sales tax flat. I think that you would like to hear that because I know we kind of like to bump it up. But I think going into it this far out, let's just look at it in a negative, pessimistic way, and let's just say, man, we're not going to have the revenue.
You have come over to my side. Thank you.
Only for today. I'm going to go back
Okay.
over.
He wants to see the extra on the backside.
I know.
Let's be real.
I understand. Yes. Okay.
Last one was 20% COLA. Try to get that budgeted in. Because we were 30 this year. We're trying to
Get
get
it up
to the 50.
Okay.
And I don't know if we can't do that. Maybe can we do a 10 and a 10, or is this our last year?
You have 2 more years. You have this budget cycle and the next one to make any changes on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You can go 30, 50, 70.
We could get to the 50, though, either with 20 or 10 and 10, right?
You would have to stay at the 30 and basically use the dollars as one time and then fund the 50 the next year. You can only do a 30 or a 50.
Oh,
Does
I
that make
understand.
sense?
Yeah, you can't go a 30, 40, 50.
No.
Okay.
Too
Well, then I
much to
guess
go
I'd
up.
like to see the 20% in there.
Okay.
Those were mine. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to it here today.
This is great. if anybody else has feedback on any of that, I would certainly be open to it. What I will do then, and maybe to Mayor's point, maybe let me get this document put together, and it's basically going to outline the highlights of the current year budget and then things to think about, which, Mayor, you hit some of the biggest main points in the budget just in what you covered just now. And I can get that out to each one of you all, and then you could individually give Andrew and I some feedback, or just Andrew feedback. We can kind of compile it, maybe here's what we're hearing from the group, back out to you guys. Once you're comfortable, then we could get it posted out on the message board, and then y'all can talk from there. But that way you kind of have free reign to vet out some ideas, maybe individually with Andrew and I, before it starts going to the bigger group, if that sounds reasonable.
I think we like it.
Okay.
Anything further from Mrs. Storr?
This is excellent. Thank you all so much. I
Appreciate
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, that is item 7C. We are going to move on to a quick update on 7D from Councilman Sherlin, our CVB.
Well, you know I'm never quick.
Man.
I move at one speed and it's sort of slow. I do have a report. Cashin is out of town working for the city of Amarillo right now, so I asked her to give me a brief statement here. So I got 5 points I want to bring up. Since the beginning of fiscal year, the ACVB board has overseen the financial changes within the organization. This includes changing over from a projected budget to a cash-on-hand budget on October 1, 2023, and taking over their own payroll on January 1st this year. Reserves have been moved into separate accounts, and they are preparing for the sponsorship income from the Route 66 Festival to go into their own account to pay for non-hot tax appropriate items. Financial reports have been strong. Bullet point number 2. The 2024 Route 66 Festival planning is underway, and the CVB staff has begun meeting with all appropriate city departments and tourism partners to ensure everything is planned well. The CVB will again partner with other counties on the Texas Route 66 for the year festivities. Third point, the CVB Film Commission received a Texas Music Friendly designation in November. This is a recognition from the governor's office for communities that are marketing and cultivating their music scene. Number 4, there has been discussion on upcoming formation of a foundation through the CVB 501c3. The board has suggested that a subcommittee be put together to guide discussions and bring ideas back to the board to consider. Cashin will be giving us an update on this item in the very near future. Number 5, the CVB staff has seen some changes this year with long-time executive administrator Mary Ramirez retiring. A new executive administrator has been hired, Alexis Gunter, and the open position for a tourism coordinator has been replaced with a servicing coordinator, Lutz Aguilar. Lutz is servicing support for both tourism and convention/group sales. Christy King has accepted a position with the Chamber of Commerce, and there is a current search for a new director of tourism. That's the end of the report. We have 2 employees here from the CVB. If we have any questions, I'm sure they would be happy to answer.
Well, I think that was a great update, sir. And I'll ask if council has any questions for either of our 2 guests here today. Okay, keep up the good work. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. It is 4:40. I would like to do consent agenda, and then we'll take a recess and come back and do non-consent. On our consent agenda, we are going to go ahead and pull off 8X. Yeah, so 8X, I'm going to remove based on the fact that it is not ready. We did not have all of our answers and from our questions and a contract, I believe, we were still waiting on. So I would ask if any other council has anything that they need pulled off. Otherwise, then I think we would be able to move forward with this consent. Anything else you guys are needing on consent?
No, sir.
Nope.
Okay, would ask for a motion.
I'd make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as stated, all items but item X.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from place 3, a second from place 2. Any further discussion on this one?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to go back on 7E if there were any future agenda items.
Oh, I skipped it, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
Yep, appreciate that, Mr. Freeman. I did skip item 7E, so item passes on consent, and then to go back to catch item 7E, thank you. Do I have any future requests from council? No, okay. Item 7E is complete. We'll move on here. Let's take a 10-minute recess, come back, and we'll take up all of our non-consent. We'll go ahead and call ourselves back into session. Appreciate you guys staying and hanging out. We got a few here. It looks like we've got, I guess, 7 items here to go through in non-consent. So we will go ahead and start with item 9A, Mrs. Laura Storrs.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is the first reading and consideration of an ordinance adopting budget amendments. Now, these are budget amendments related to last fiscal year. So the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023. And the reason we're bringing it to you now is we have pretty much completed audited statements, financial statements at this point. This is a step that we have to do. We have a handful of legally adopted budgets, and if those legally adopted budgets, if the amount that we spend exceeds the amount that was originally approved, we have to do a budget amendment related to it. I will tell you of of the main city departments or the main city funds, the general fund is a legally adopted budget, but your other ones are not. So water and sewer is not, airport is not, drainage is not. So just for your reference. So we did not need to bring forward a general fund amendment this year. We were under budget in total by expense, and we were over budget on revenue. So we collected more revenue than anticipated. And we'll be talking more about that with a couple of you guys next week during the audit committee meeting. We're going to be going over the audited financial statements. Get ready. It's going to be a lot of good information. And then we'll be presenting the audited financials to City Council at the next council meeting. So on this item, here we go, real quick. So we have 5 different funds that have to have budget amendments. The first one is your Law Enforcement Officers Standards and Education Fund, known as your LEOS funds. We overspent that budget by $15,000, and it was all on training for our police department. There were sufficient funds available to pay for it, but we did wind up doing more training than we had originally budgeted, so we need to do an amendment on it. On your Compensated Absences Fund, that is where we pay out all of the annual leave, sick leave, and comp time that is owed to people when they terminate service with the city. And that fund can fluctuate from one year to the next, just depending on how many people. Usually, the biggest payouts are related to retirements, those type things, more tenured people. And so we paid out more than anticipated, and so we need to amend that budget by $800,000. Then the last 3 are your public improvement districts. So 3 of your public improvement districts need budget amendments. Those are legally adopted budgets. We sent information to each one of those PID boards to let them know we were bringing these amendments. The first one is the Colonies PID. We need to amend the expense budget by $260,000. What they did is they worked on finishing out reimbursing the original developer for those park amenities there. We did a debt issuance this past year to pay out the bulk of it, and there was a little bit more that needed to be paid out, and the board decided to pay it out with some excess reserves. And so this does not affect their minimum reserves, but we do need to amend that budget for that additional amount paid out. Then on the Vineyards Public Improvement District, this is actually amending their revenue budget. So they collected about $5,000 less than what we had budgeted, and so we need to bring that revenue budget in line with what those assessments came in at. And then the last one is your Heritage Hills Public Improvement District, and that one is on the expense side. We paid out more for park amenities than what we had originally anticipated by $15,000. They did have excess reserves that could fund that. And so those are your recommended budget amendments. This takes 2 readings because it's done through an ordinance. So we have today, and then we'll have second reading on the 27th. As a reminder, on your public improvement districts, those are fully funded and paid for out of assessments collected by the people living inside those public improvement district areas. So those are not supported by any city dollars. Those are supported only by the assessments in those areas. So with that, I wanted to see if I could answer any questions related to this.
The only thing I have is on the PIDs.
Yes.
Are they aware that that they spent excess reserves and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Those were all discussed during the board meetings before they took that action. Yes.
That's all I have.
Anything further? No? Okay, I don't think we have any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Mrs. Storrs. With no further questions on this one, would ask for a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8116 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion on item 9A? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Moving on to item 9B, we have our interim city manager, Andrew Freedom, here to discuss the ETJ with us.
Yes, sir. So this is a follow-up from council discussion that we had end of last year. We had a request from Councilmember Sherlin to bring this item forward for discussion as far as it goes reducing the ETJ or extraterritorial jurisdiction. The main reason it came forward and why it's being considered is the state law has changed quite a bit the last 5 to 10 years as far as what authority cities have as far as annexing new properties. It is basically made to where we have to partner with landowners that are interested and willing to be annexed before we can proceed through that process. Other issues that have popped up at the state level, and we think this will be an ongoing discussion in future sessions, is the extent of the ETJ. They've already passed a law, although there's a conflict with another section of law that would allow property owners to petition to be removed from the city. ETJ. So they've already given more authority, one, to not be annexed, two, to if you don't want the city overseeing you out in the county in the ETJ, you can opt out, and then three, we believe they'll continue to go down that path. Another part of the discussion was staff resources, staff focus on what they are doing in the planning department, capital projects and development engineering as far as the number of submittals that come in the county that's outside that 1 mile boundary. Is there really a chance that we're going to annex those? Do we need to be as involved in what's developing in the county? Or should the counties have more authority and role to approve what they'd like to approve, also adopt the standards that they'd like to see? We have had some conflicts in the past of city regulations that we enforce not always aligning with what the county might want to approve or have a higher standard when it comes to engineering requirements. We give a little more flexibility inside the city or with city regulations. If the engineers will stamp it and they have multiple options to consider drainage paths, for example, we will take what their engineers submit and review it as is versus forcing a particular standard based on other criteria. So that was another benefit. What's been proposed today is keeping it at 1 mile. I know some cities are considering getting rid of their ETJ altogether because of the state law changes and how tough it is to annex. But we feel that we'll still see the benefit of working with our developers and landowners that want to be in the city. The typical section of land that we annex is about 1 mile, so we'll still have the capability of annexing that 1 mile. And then as soon as you annex, it extends it out another mile. So it grows with you as the city grows, is a little more sustainable that way, and have the opportunity to try and plan and work with our landowners that are interested in that path. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We did build it in here that it would be a 6-month notice so we can let our 4 counties that we have ETJ agreements with to know about the change so they can prepare for the increase in submittals with their contract engineers or in-house staff to be able to take that, as well as letting our surveyors, engineers, and those firms that we work with on a regular basis. The big change is they'll have another place to submit their plans. They'll have a different fee that they pay to the county for review and inspections, so we want to give them plenty of time to prepare for that change. So, happy to answer any questions.
Questions on this one?
Just kind of as a so the downside of keeping this at 5 miles.
The downside of keeping it, just continuing to regulate city criteria and requirements in an area that we may never annex in the future. The main reason we wouldn't annex it is because it's not developing with water and sewer utilities, so we wouldn't want to annex them for that reason, but also the possibility of achieving an annexation is very slim because it would require an election or petition of those residents within that section of land. So the odds of us being successful annexing is also a challenge.
Yeah. And have we had any time where it's come up where we've had anything outside of that 1 mile area involving the ETJ? Has that been recent? Does that come up often?
As far as development occurring?
Yes.
Quite often. There's quite a bit of ETJ development, and they also plat them and develop them in larger sections than inside the city because they only have to do the roads and the drainage. They don't have to extend water and utilities. So we'll actually see more lots and larger developments taking place at the same time versus piecing and phasing that we see in the city limits.
But now that responsibility goes
Default
over
to the county, outside the 1 mile. Yes, sir.
I think probably the question that I hear is, well, what if you had a landowner that's 5 miles outside of the city, you remove your ETJ down, are they not able to be annexed?
No, so they would have a tough time being annexed unless they're contiguous, so that'd be something we'd have to work through, but they could always opt back in and we could extend the ETJ to them as an option to annex them if we get to the point where they have the capability to request annexation.
So tell me a little bit more about current state law that keeps you from kind of frog hopping over somebody. You could go ahead and reach out a little further, annex somebody in. Now you're referencing state law saying you have to be right up next to existing boundaries.
So you either have to abut or there is some flexibility. In the past, they've totally removed that you could use a road to get out to them. They have added back in that as a possibility. So that could offer some flexibility to bypass some that may want to stay outside the city limits.
So the concern is well, you're giving up all your authority 5 miles out, and what you're saying is, well, the state's taking that authority away.
Right.
Because you don't have the ability to reach 5 miles out and annex somebody that's not up next to your border.
Yeah, or they're not interested in being annexed. But if they are, we could still make that an option.
Okay.
Just it's more property owner driven than request driven.
And then we also have a little bit of discrepancy in enforcement, right? Like, so I'm bringing you my plans for my, let's say they're 2-acre tract developments, and I'm putting in a road, but I'm not really doing anything other than bar ditches. And then these are just 2-acre tracts, but you guys are having to review that, and staff's reviewing that on behalf of me that's out in the county. Now, I don't pay any city taxes, but I get that service for free.
Or the developer pays a fee for the construction plans, and that includes inspections, but it's not full cost recovery.
So now the only difference would be instead of coming to the Sims building or City Hall, I would be going to the county. That's the normal process for everywhere else, from here to Tulia
County
anyway,
services.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So they have all these services. We're not handing anything over to them that they're unprepared for or that they don't already do.
Right. They've already done it outside that 5 mile boundary. Maybe not as many of them, but they would be able to take on additional. I know they contract with engineering firms that have the staff that can do the same review that we do. They can set their own fees to try and cost recovery those inspections. They can also, I believe Randall County's adopting their new subdivision regulations, so they can update their rules how they see fit for the development of the county.
And really, we always want to work with every landowner that we have around the outside of the city limits, and anyone that's interested in annexing has a good plan, meets all our criteria. I mean, we can still work with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. I know I was fielding a few questions on it, so just trying to hit the highlights one more time.
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Freeman? No. Okay. Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8117 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. With no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 9C, we have Mr. Hooper coming up here to give us a quick review on speed cushions and that ordinance.
Just to follow up from a meeting that we had in January, As we mentioned in that meeting, we don't have we do not have an ordinance on the books right now that addresses anything like this. We get multiple requests for speed humps or speed bumps and things like that. So through our research and finding speed cushions, we felt like we had something to move forward with. So just kind of go over the language that's in the ordinance that's before you. Again, it's a petition of 70% of the homeowners. If you've been previously denied a petition, you're not eligible for 3 years. It is one vote for each lot, and that is the homeowner of that lot. That's the way we put it in the ordinance. Also, registered property owners associations or recognized neighborhood associations can request that with just a blanket statement from their board meeting that they had. And Public Works, of course, is overseeing this, but we have also assistance with fire and police to make sure that it doesn't interfere with their emergency routes, and the city secretary will be involved in it as well. Some of the ordinance language as far as operational requirements are concerned must be on a local residential street or residential collector street that meets the vehicle volume per day counts. Streets can't be wider than 38 feet. Typical residential streets are going to fall into this category. No more than one moving lane of traffic, and the volumes of 500, more than 500 and less than 300 a day, and vehicle speeds in that 85th percentile of 36 miles an hour, and cannot be identified as a primary route for emergency vehicles. The geometric requirements, adequate sight distances to give drivers adequate advance warning, can have drainage limitations. If we have a lot of drainage structures on that street, of course, we're not going to be able to qualify that one. Can't be located on a horizontal curve where you can't see around that to see that it's coming, or a vertical grade of greater than 8%, and that's pretty standard with anyone that's doing these. Also, if the street has no curb or gutter, it must follow special design to prevent vehicles from driving around that and going in the bar ditch, so on and so forth. We did add this piece too for new developments after a little bit of research there, as Councilman Tips had asked us to. So we went back and provided a section in there where the developer would have to provide us with the traffic analysis to show what kind of projected traffic they're going to see with that development based on the number of houses that are there. We'll evaluate that in-house and determine their eligibility, and they must meet the same requirements that I just went over in the past 2 slide pages, just for what they would see as far as horizontal curves, things like that. Cost responsibility, we talked about this in the last meeting as well. Property owners would pretty much have to pay for all this unless we get to over 41 miles per hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and then we would participate with 25% of that, and they would pay for 75% of that. And with that, that's pretty much, we went through the big presentation last time. I hope that just hit the highlights so they can be reminded of that, and we're ready to move forward with this ordinance.
We appreciate it, sir. Any questions for Mr. Hooper?
No, thank you for all your hard work on it.
Thank you.
Councilman Sherlin, you got one?
No.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You bet.
I'll make a motion. We accept ordinance 8118 as stated.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on item 9C. Any further discussion on this guy? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Item 9D, Ms. Laura Stores is back up to talk to us about our Amarillo Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So this is a resolution approving the reimbursement agreement with the Amarillo Chamber of Commerce. So if you'll remember back to our budget workshops, we've been talking a lot about budget today. You'll remember we talked about a request that had come in from the Chamber of Commerce to provide up to $50,000 more in additional funding. So we are members of the Chamber of Commerce, and so we have a membership with them, but this is outside of that. This is more related to the work that they do to help support city initiatives. They do things down in Austin. They do things in Washington, D.C., here locally as well. And so the way we have shaped this agreement is that it runs on a fiscal year basis, and it's a not to exceed amount. So this would be the first year of it. It's at $50,000, not to exceed. And what they would do is at the end of the year, they would turn into us all eligible expenses, and we could present that all to you guys and then actually proceed with reimbursing them for it. So they don't get just the blanket $50,000. They would have to show their costs associated with those initiatives, and we'd present that to you all to authorize the reimbursement. And then going forward, we would ask them to let us know by a May timeframe to what they might need in the upcoming year, so we can build it into the budget and make sure that we have funding available for it. So with that, I can answer any questions, or we have Jason Harrison here with the Chamber of Commerce, and he could certainly maybe give you all some thoughts on what they're thinking they may spend some of those dollars on, or what they could spend some of that money on, or answer any other questions that you all have.
Any questions for Mrs. Storrs? Mr. Harrison, go ahead and come on up here.
Sounds great. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. Really, I think one of my goals when I took over the chamber was to be more of an advocate with the city, and looking at additional events, additional things that we can do in support of initiatives that the city may have. You know, everyone knows about Panhandle Days, DC Days, but I think the chamber, as strong as the chamber is, can get more involved in Austin on other avenues. We can work with the city on just about any initiative that might come up. And so really all this is just to help with some of those expenses that might come up. It may be 0, it may be 10, I don't know, 50,000 I think was just something that was thrown out there. Again, I don't want money on the front end. I want to be able to go and work for the city on behalf of the chamber, and then come back to you guys and say, hey, this is what we did, and then let the city and you guys decide, okay, yeah, that's something that's community-wide. No, that's maybe something that's more membership-driven. But this just alleviates some of my concern with building up a lot of expenses that are coming right out of the chamber and not being able to be recouped for some of those things. So that's really in a nutshell what this came down to. You know, we're a part of a Take and Flight program that's helping air service here in Amarillo. And I think that it's been a valuable resource, and I think there's many more of those programs out there. It's just a matter of us getting together and working through them. So.
Any questions for Jason, gentlemen? No? Man, we know you've got a lot of good Amarillo ambassadors over there, and this gives you an opportunity to put them out there and let them do what you guys need to do, which is to continue to promote commerce, business here in Amarillo, and grow the draw here. And so I think it's a small amount of money that we like the way in which we're managing it. It's a reimbursement and gives you the ability to go out and spend money and then come back in and show us what you did on our behalf, and then be reimbursed for it.
That's
so
right.
It's pretty simple, but we want you to hear, you know, we appreciate the partnership.
You bet. I appreciate you guys. And then, you know, this is new. So as we move on down the years, then we can see how it's going, and we can always massage it and add to it, take away from it, whatever. But as of is right now, nothing to the city until it's done, and then even then, nothing to the city unless you guys decide, yeah, that does fit into it. So.
Well, we're glad to let you show us that ROI. So
I appreciate it.
You guys keep pushing forward. Thank you for being here.
You bet. Thank you all for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I move we adopt resolution number 02-13-24-3.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Simpson, a second from Councilman Tips on item 9D. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 9E. This is a resolution that we have here, and I'm going to flip to the back of my notes here just so I have it. This resolution actually came, thank you, sir. This resolution actually came up on our message board. And so I have become a big fan and advocate of message board. I think it's a great tool that we as council are being able to utilize this so that it's not every 2 weeks or however long before we can put an idea out. And so Councilman Sherlin, watching what's going on down at the state border, watching the intentional invasion of our entire country, but you know, a large majority of it that's coming through the state of Texas. And then looking at Operation Lone Star, which unfortunately is a measure that I think you've seen our governor take as kind of a last-ditch effort to say, you know, we need your help down here, and we like, we love the U.S. Constitution, we like our United States of America, and we need to stay united, and that means we need borders. And we need people that can do their job down there. And so we are all sitting here very, very conscientious of the reality that we see of hundreds of thousands of people that have come across our border that are identified on our terror watch list or identified as a potential threat and an antagonist to this country. You're watching somewhere north of 9 million people that have come through these southern borders over the last 3 years, with a forecast of around 12 to 14 million before Biden is hopefully out of office. And so I just put all that out there just real plain and simple. And I think that is the way in which we address this. And so this is a show of support. It's a resolution. And I think we as Texans need to back our fellow Texans that are a little further south down in Austin, and they need to know that we're pulling for them up here. And so this makes a statement. And I would ask Councilman Sherlin, since he brought this up, if there's anything that he would like to add to, and then we'll move through council.
Very well written. I think it's a great statement. We show as a city where we stand. We wouldn't be taking this action if the federal government was doing what they were supposed to. So I'm very pro what is written there.
Thank you, sir. Do I have any other council members that have any questions on this, or even perhaps a remark or two?
No, sir.
Nope. No. I would like to just hit a few highlights before we vote on this one. Our border doesn't just keep people from crossing it, one at a time. Our border regulates commerce, and we have points of entry, and there is nothing wrong with legal immigration. And we, as the city of Amarillo, have at one time, I think we still are, the second largest per capita population of refugees. And so we have Somalian, Myanmar, Burundi, all sorts of different refugees that are here, that are in Amarillo, that have assimilated to Amarillo and take care of all sorts of good things in their neighborhoods, and they build their culture, and they bring kind of their fabric, and they truly have assimilated as legal refugees. We have nonprofits that work here, and these are the types that are seeing this as this influx of people that are coming here illegally, without permission, not coming through a point of entry, and truly not being willing to assimilate into the fabric of society that we get to enjoy here with these refugees that are here. And so I would like to say that on the good side, we take in, I'll give you a statistic here. Refugees are different than asylum seekers. Refugees have a different reason for coming here. They are vetted thoroughly. Since October, we've settled 51 refugees here in Amarillo. Somalian, Thailand, Myanmar, and Burundi. This current year, we believe we'll settle another 150. We have the ability to assimilate and settle 200, 250 people a year, and do it the right way, and take them through the programs and continue with the resources that we have. We do not have the ability to settle tens of thousands of people into this community. Neither do any other communities that we have. And so we as a nation don't have the ability to take on 9.4 million people across the border. Not only do we have to look at taking care of the population that we have that's come here legally, we also need to look at the population that's being impacted on the fentanyl crisis that's coming across that border. We have to look at the fact that China provides these raw materials into Mexico, and Mexico processes these pills, and that those pills end up on our border towns, and consequently right here at I-40 and I-27, we're a main corridor, and we see drug seizure after drug seizure and arrest after arrest where we are pulling these pills out of this town. And so that is a fact, and that is something that we are concerned with. We had 5 overdose deaths in 2022. And in 2023, we had 12 overdose deaths from fentanyl. And this next year, maybe it'll double again. And then as that epidemic continues, without us being able to push back and to control those borders effectively, I don't know that we would expect anything other than that outcome. So we have to take control of our border. Not only that, but we have more or less propped up, I'd say 4 or 5 cartels that we know are operating here within the city limits, and that they work alongside of local gang members. And these local gangs facilitate a very organized criminal industry. And so that's the human trafficking element. That's the organized crime element. That's everything else that we see. If we want to live in a safe community, we have to have a strong state that manages its border. And so something like this gives us an opportunity to just say once again, we are pro-American, we are for each other, we are for safety and security and freedom and all of the things that we hold dear. It's time to take a stand and stand up for those and to take a stand on what your rights are and our rights are. And as the state of Texas, it's our obligation to protect our citizens here in the state. That's what you see Governor Abbott doing, and I believe that's what you see us trying to do up here in Amarillo, Texas with this resolution. Thank you guys for letting me speak to that. I would ask if anybody has anything else, please feel free to add to. Otherwise, I'm excited to vote this one through.
I make a motion. We accept resolution 02-13-24-4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with a 5-0 vote. All right. We will move on to item 9F. We have Mr. Freeman coming forward.
Yes, sir, and I'll ask Mr. Carter with the ADC to come up here in a minute to cover their piece. This is a follow-up item based on the joint work session that City Council and the AEDC Board had in January. We got some feedback on some potential changes to our economic development incentive guidelines. They were last adopted in August of 2019. Haven't really touched them since that time. So we have some minor changes to present to you, really related to the criteria to qualify for an incentive. And then we've got some minor typos and adjustments to make. Some laws that existed before are no longer in existence, so we have that to update. And I also wanted to share the AEDC Board did consider their changes to their portion of the guidelines at their January 29th meeting and did vote to approve those. So as far as the city changes that I'll cover, it's again related to the tax abatement criteria. We updated the capital investment costs, basically taking the lowest amount at $2 million and taking that up to $4 million. So that's really the minimum threshold to qualify. It's also a requirement to have 25 jobs now instead of 20 full-time jobs created or retained. And then we updated the payroll. Now we took the opportunity to adjust it to match how AEDC words theirs, and instead of payroll, we're updating that to average gross wage per job of $50,000. And then probably the other big change is the way the annual abatement language is presented. Previously, it stated up to 40% annually. Now we're having the preferred sliding scale referenced in the matrix. So if it's a 40% tax abatement, it would actually step down each year by 10%. So 40, 30, 20, 10. And then for the 10-year example, it's 10, or it's 100%, 90%, 80%, and so forth till 10%. We also updated each of the other criteria under each of the sections. $6 million capital investments, now $8 million. $8 million capital investment goes to 12, and then $15 million goes to 20. So just increasing those thresholds, knowing how much cost of increase, cost of construction, and all the investment being made, that we thought it was time to raise those as well. And then the other change is on page 9 of our incentive guidelines with sales tax rebates, also updating the new payroll language of $800,000, changing that to average gross wage per job of $50,000, and then a minimum of 25 new full-time jobs instead of 20. So those are the minor changes on the city's side, and I'll ask Kevin to come up and talk about AEDCs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you all for spending the time last month to go over these guidelines. Like I said, it had been a while since They had been reviewed. Really, the major changes with us are on our capital investment and our average job gross wage. One matrix on page 16 of our guidelines. The capital investment was really really low. So we increased all four of those categories. We quadrupled those investments. So the minimum was at $500,000 and the maximum was at $2 million. And we took those to $2 million through $8 million on the capital investment to get the job creation incentive. We added $5,000 to each one of the average gross wage per job, where the minimum where we'll incentivize a job has to pay at least $50,000 per year. That puts it close to the average between the two counties' median wage. We're not quite there, but it's above the Potter County median wage and a little below the Randall County median wage, but closer to the average. And then the other changes were mainly formatting changes and a couple of typos. But certainly would answer any questions if y'all had those. But I do appreciate the work last month, spending the time on AEDC. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Carter? No. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Kevin.
I got a question.
Go right ahead.
Did y'all not address the change in membership? I asked to go to 7.
Are you asking about the board members?
Board members?
Yeah, so
yeah, that's not on this discussion, but I know that
to clarify, incentive guidelines only is what we're working
so this
on.
was incentive guidelines. I believe the direction we got during the workshop was to bring that back for a further discussion at the next, I don't know if we were talking quarterly, but in a few months, we're going to bring back that discussion as well as the dashboard metrics of what we're going to be tracking and continue the conversation on both.
Yes, sir. So make sure Councilman Sherlin doesn't need anything else here, but looking at the additional changes on the board size and the additional board members, that will come up in the next meeting. And so we're looking forward to having another meeting with you and your board. Look at that. Also look at our strategic business planning in the way in which we're trying to incorporate some of those other needs that we have on our side with infrastructure and growth. And then I think we even had talked about maybe trying to get some consulting or pulling from some of our local consultants that can step in and evaluate and help us steer.
Yeah, I know that you and I, Mayor, talked about maybe putting together a CEO council to help with those things, and I know City Manager and I have talked about that dashboard, but I do know the Mayor had said something about the additional board members sometime, hopefully by summertime. I think that's what you told me,
Yes,
Mayor.
sir. Yep, so I think we're good on our side.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Carter?
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, would ask for a motion on 9F, please.
I move to adopt Resolution 9F, number 02-13-24-5.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. We will now go to item 9G. Do we have Mr. Danforth up for this one? This is our last item today. Come and give us an update on our service center, please, sir.
Mayor, Council, appreciate you saving the best for last, but here we are. So this project is actually part of the space study that we did several years ago. The fuel centers that you approved are currently under construction and moving ahead, and this facility ties into that. What we did was we canceled the lease on what was known as the GTM building, which was a 90,000 square foot building. The goal was to utilize that building for utilities, drainage, and streets. Currently, utilities is operating in that building, but accessibility to the other parts of the building were limited. And so, that being said, we had to, this project addresses that limitation. It gives us more entrances into the building, gives us better flow control for the facility, and then it gives us concrete driveways and approaches and parking lots, whereas right now we have asphalt that it looks like it's about 20 years old and there's not much of it left. And so consequently, when we have a major weather event, that building could potentially be shut down if we don't make these kinds of corrections. So that's basically gives you a crib notes version of what it is we're doing there by creating those additional entrances and getting those other departments to be able to utilize that facility. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Danforth?
The only one I have, sir, is I was just curious as to why Plains Builders over Panhandle Steel.
That came down to a scoring matrix. This was the best value bid, and so consequently there was 3 criteria. Plains Builders was able to be a little better than 30 days quicker, as we represented like on the fuel islands and some of the other projects out there. 30 days is a substantial amount of time. Quite frankly, we just can't afford for that building to be shut down. And so with Plains Builders and the way that they presented their package and the ability to get done quicker, it offset the differential in price by quite a bit.
Okay, we know this will hit our return on our investment with efficiencies, a lot of in and out and traffic flow and everything that you're dealing with. And then it's been a while since I've been out there, but I'm sure it's crushed asphalt more so than asphalt.
Well,
So-
it appears to be that way, but I'm
Yes.
sure it was originally asphalt. But
Right. Thank you for being up here. Appreciate the update.
Sure.
That's our last item here on 9G. If anyone would like to make a motion.
I move to award contract for item number, was it 9G, to Plains Builders in the amount of $2,494,025. For the service center complex improvements.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. We appreciate you guys staying and being here. Hopefully, we'll continue to get more and more efficient and effective. I was shooting for 5, and it's 5:40, so not terrible. Would ask for a motion to adjourn, and we'll get out of here.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.